All right, let's jump right into today's explainer because we are tackling a profoundly fascinating and honestly, rapidly evolving debate. Who actually owns the raw material that powers artificial intelligence? We're going to examine everything from Bernie Sanders' economic policies to some serious Vatican manifestos. And yeah, we'll even pull in some sharp cultural critiques involving Sigmund Freud. So let's dive right in and uncover the blueprint for what some are starting to call the global AI commons.
Okay, I want you to keep this central, really massive question in mind as we go through this. If humanity has accumulated knowledge, built AI, who should collect the dividend? We're looking at this huge tension right now, because on one hand, you have the global extraction of data, right? I mean, every book, every song, every line of code ever produced. And then on the other hand, we have this immense concentration of the resulting wealth. So who really deserves the payout?
Section 1. The 50% Proposal. Bernie Sanders' AI Sovereign Wealth Fund. What's really fascinating here is the sheer scale of this proposal. Sanders isn't just, asking for some small corporate tax increase. He's proposing a radical, fundamental move. He wants to take major frontier AI companies, think OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, and transfer literally 50% of their shares to a newly established American Artificial Intelligence Sovereign Wealth Fund. And this fund wouldn't just sit there. It would provide voting rights on corporate boards and actually generate direct payments and Social Security for the American people.
The justification here is that AI's massive valuations don't just magically appear from investor risk or entrepreneurial genius. Sanders argues that AI is quite literally built on humanity's accumulated knowledge, creativity, and labor. We're talking about the books, the journalism, computer code, scientific research, and even the casual conversations accumulated across generations. But wait, if we define the raw material this way, the stage suddenly widens dramatically, doesn't it? The source isn't just the American people. The source is the world's languages, the world's labor, and the world's users.
Section 2. The Global Data Paradox. A world source versus a national ledger.
Let's consider the difference in resource logic for a second. Think about a national resource. If oil is extracted in Alaska, an Alaskan fund makes complete sense. Or if Norway drills Norwegian oil, a Norwegian fund is perfectly logical. But AI resource logic is completely different. AI extracts its value from global culture. When the raw material powering AI is world literature, treating it like a national oil field is a fundamental flaw. Basically, writing the wealth of global history into a single American ledger produces an incredibly narrow, localized result from a completely universal input.
Section 3. Showbiz, Babylon, and the AI Beast. The Architecture of Spectacle.
Now, the author of our source text brings in this incredibly sharp critique from Sigmund Freud, a quote that originally entered circulation through Ernest Jones's biography. Freud said, "America is a mistake, admittedly a gigantic mistake." Now, the text doesn't use this as some cheap geographical insult. Instead, it's reporting that America in this context represents a specific form of civilization, a civilization that accelerates spectacle, turns faces into brands, and essentially organizes the entire world as a field of consumable images. Think about it. Hollywood collected world images, social media collected world attention, and now major AI companies are transforming world literature and human behavior into consumable model weights.
To really grasp this, we have to trace what the text calls the line of synthetic sovereignty. It's a concrete structural metaphor that starts way back with the biblical Babel, that fundamental desire for one single language and one tower. Then it moves to Babylon, which represents showbiz, where visibility itself is turned into power and spectacle. The text even notes that Donald Trump is the contemporary political figure of this stage, holding power that is shaped specifically by reality TV and branding. From there, we move into platform culture, where our visibility is constantly ranked for endless circulation. And finally, we arrive at generative AI, which the text describes as the beast. It absorbs all this raw material of global visibility, the translator's labor, the coder's solution, the academic's notes, and spits out synthetic continuations of culture purely for profit.
Section 4. Human Dignity and Technology. The Vatican's 2026 Manifesto.
Shifting gears a bit, we come to a deeply powerful principle from Pope Leo XIV. In this 2026 manifesto, the Vatican doesn't just list off the standard risks of AI, it places the very question of human dignity squarely inside production, education, and truth. The Pope states that technology bears the trace of those who design, finance, regulate, and use it. So the ownership of AI is fundamentally tied to human dignity, not just its market valuation or how much productivity we can measure. And this is exactly where the text connects the Vatican back to Bernie Sanders' proposal. The source argues that Christian dignity isn't somehow closed off inside an exclusive Catholic ledger, right? It's a universal call. By that exact same logic, if AI arises from the languages, archives, and voices of the entire world, the AI dividend cannot be closed inside an exclusive American citizenship ledger. Both the denominational boundary and the national boundary are closure forms. They artificially limit what is inherently a universal resource.
Section 5. Time, Form, and Social GPT. The synthesis of universal basic income.
Okay, if you take away absolutely one thing from this explainer today, let it be this exact phrase. UBI gives time. Social GPT helps time find form. This is really the emotional and practical core of the entire essay. Universal basic income alone, just handing out money, is not enough. Because without structure, people can receive a basic income and still end up stuck in that synthetic platform loneliness, trapped in viral loops of resentment and endless doom scrolling. Free time needs meaningful form.
When we contrast the current Babylonian internet, what we call platform culture, with this proposed social GP culture, the differences are night and day. Drawing on ideas from Zizek analysis, the text argues that platform culture is completely focused on ranked visibility, synthetic companionship, and personal relief loops. Social GP, on the other hand, is built as a literal reality engine. It provides actual context instead of an endless flow of content. It offers clear chains of evidence instead of viral repetition. And most importantly, it builds genuine public bonds and collective intelligence instead of just synthetic companionship.
So, you might be wondering, how does this actually function in the real world? Well, Social GPT acts as a democratic public interface. It's not just another branded chatbot. First, you have the rights engine, which makes rights legible for everyone, including migrants or informal laborers who completely fall outside a standard citizenship ledger. Then there's the Commons map, which connects a person's newly acquired free time to real-world social forms, things like local ecological repair or childcare. Third, a budget tracker transparently shows exactly how much energy a local data center used and which community got a dividend from it. And crucially, there's the objection engine. This allows people to contest wrong AI classifications, whether someone lost a job unfairly or a specific linguistic basin was uncompensated. It creates a genuinely objectable public space.
Section 6. A Global AI Commons. Expanding the ledger.
Notice the sheer level of detail in this proposed federation. It is designed to distribute resources to literally every single layer that AI relies on. Yes, it takes equity from frontier AI companies for sure, but it also creates specific language culture funds. Think about it. Turkish, Arabic, Kurdish, Spanish, Yoruba. These aren't just mere data points for an algorithm. They are rich cultural basins that fundamentally deserve a fund. It also creates local infrastructure dividends to directly compensate communities for the massive water and energy burdens of these giant data centers. Plus, it funds open source code and provides care funds for the absolutely crucial human work of elder care, learning circles, and disaster response networks. But listen, here is the absolute most fragile, critical point of the entire design. For this whole system to work without turning into a dystopian nightmare, income and contribution must be strictly separated. Income remains unconditional. Participation remains invitational. Social GPT absolutely cannot be allowed to turn into some digital authority that gamifies public life or produces a weird social virtue score. Tying human survival to AI-managed work discipline completely reverses the entire purpose of preserving human dignity.
And that brings us to our final, deeply provocative thought straight from the source. If world literature entered the model, shouldn't the peoples of the world enter the dividend ledger? That's not just a catchy slogan. It is a fundamental principle of ownership, dignity, and global infrastructure. As we navigate the future of this AI economy, it really challenges us to ensure that the culture swallowed up by the AI beast eventually returns to support the life, time, and democratic governance of literally everyone on the planet. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. I highly encourage you to reflect on this as AI just continues to reshape our world.